Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Energy MD podcast, where we help you resolve your long COVID and chronic fatigue syndrome by getting to the real root causes, a combination of heavy metals, chemicals, molds, infections, and nervous system dysfunction, so you can get back to living your best life. So I'm really excited because today we get to chat with one of my mentors. He didn't know he was one of my mentors, but he really helped me when I went through my chronic fatigue syndrome, and he provided me with a lot of really great information that has helped a lot of the people that I'm working with. So really excited. We're going to be talking with Dr. Jacob Teitelbaum today, so let's learn a little bit about him. He is one of the most frequently quoted post-viral CFS, fibromyalgia, energy, and pain medical authorities in the world. He is the author of 12 books, including You Can Heal from Long COVID, the best-selling From Fatigue to Fantastic, Pain-Free 1, 2, 3, The Complete Guide to Beating Sugar Addiction, Real Cause, Real Cure, The Fatigue and Fibromyalgia Solution, The Perfect Multivitamin, and the popular free smartphone app Cures A through Z. He is the lead author of 8 studies on effective treatment for fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome and 3 medical textbook chapters. Dr. Teitelbaum appears often as a guest on news and talk shows nationwide, including Good Morning America, The Dr. Oz Show, Oprah and Friends, CNN, and Fox News Health. Dr. Teitelbaum, thank you so much for joining me today.
Evan, I'm honored to be with you and with the viewers today. And for those of you out there who have fatigue, fibromyalgia, long COVID, CFS, or pain, we are going to teach you how to recover.
Mm.
Evan has given a wonderful framework. We're going to fill in parts of that and actually discuss what is underlying a big part of those issues. So you can start to disassemble the cascade that's been going on and dragging you down.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's such a struggle, right? I know you had fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome, and you got over it. I had it. It's such a debilitating disease, and I so appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today about how to help more people. So let's talk about the increase in numbers that we're seeing, this fatigue epidemic. Why is it kind of like a perfect storm for this right now?
Well, what we're seeing is that over 31% of adults have severe chronic fatigue, which is insane if you think about it. And who doesn't want more energy? So if you look at the underlying things, number one, half of the vitamins and minerals in our diet are lost in food processing. All the calories are still there, but literally half of the micronutrients. So virtually everybody is nutritionally deficient or obese and malnourished at the same time for the first time in human history. So it's good to start with a good high potency multivitamin. The one that I like is called the Energy Revitalization Drink Mix, because one drink replaces handfuls of pills and makes it easy. Um, Number two, sleep. Average night sleep in the United States until light bulbs was 9 hours a night. We are now down to 6 and 3/4. That's a 30% pay cut for our bodies. So we'll talk about, if time allows, how to make time for sleep. But more importantly, in this disease, the sleep center is not working. So how to get sleep anyway. Um, Number three, we have an environment that has over 85,000 chemicals, not to mention all the electromagnetic and other pollution that's put out there. It's a challenge to our body to handle all of this. It can, if you give it what it needs to do so. And then you have the stress of modern life. It used to be the news talked about, well, I don't know, here's what happened today. Now it's, here's why you should hate everybody and be afraid of everybody. That's what they call the news. It's a fiction on both sides. I love them dearly. I don't know why they still quote me. My son quoted me today, and I tell everybody turn these things off. It's just if it starts to make you irritable, anxious, grinding your teeth, turn it off.
Uh, Well said. So let's go to the high potency multivitamin, the nutritional deficiencies. So are there certain deficiencies that you find are more prevalent than others in chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia?
Well, the magnesium and B vitamin deficiencies and zinc, I would add, are especially important. And again, you want about 200 of magnesium, you want 50 milligrams of most of the Bs, 500 micrograms of B12. That's why the energy revitalization drink mix, that's what I take myself each morning. One drink and you're good to go for the day, and you cover virtually all of those. You do want to decrease salt. I'm sorry, you want to increase salt. You want to decrease sugar. Most of you will feel better with a high protein, low carb, almost a keto type diet, although not that strict. Although some of you will find that you get depressed if you don't get your carbs, in which case listen to your body, see what leaves you feeling the best, with the exception of sugar, which is basically an addiction.
Mhm. Let's talk a little bit about forms of B12. I find that about half of the people that I work with can't tolerate methyl B12. I'm curious if that's been your experience and if you have an idea why that's the case.
I'm not saying that. It's funny. We each draw a different group of people that, like, you focus on the toxic metals and things like that, perhaps more than I do. And it's funny. Neil, Dr. Nathan, who wrote Toxic, he draws a different group. It's like the Universal Social Secretary is sending people along. And the group that I treat, I don't see the methyl B12 being a problem. In fact, it's a very good form for most of them. For the methylation, the 5-MTHF folate is important, especially for the detoxification. That and the NAC. The NAC is also, which makes glutathione for detox, is also in the powder. Um, so I don't see that. Why do you think? I mean, why do you think you're seeing it in your group?
I think that a lot of it has to do with kind of like pushing the methylation pathway before the body's ready to do it, and then kind of like moving things more into transsulfuration, and you're getting potentially more buildup of ammonia and less buildup of glutathione. So, yeah, I don't entirely know, but I end up using other forms. The other thing too is that I think I'm using higher doses than you are, because it sounds like you said 500 micrograms is generally what you recommend.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get people up to like about 1,500 on their laboratory test, which sometimes requires 5,000 or 10,000 micrograms, and so that could also be part of the reason. I just noticed that sometimes people have more benefit to energy, mood, and sleep when I do that. What do you think about that? Are those doses too high?
No. The only way you can harm somebody from excess B12 pretty much is to put it in a bathtub and drown them in it. It's just we have the B12 levels are not reliable because 6% of the population, this is recent research that supports what we've known for decades. Many people, even though the blood level is high, they can't get past the blood-brain barrier. They're missing the enzyme needed to transport the B12 into the brain. And unless you get very high levels called passive diffusion won't happen. So I'm comfortable, if I'm giving the injections, I'm going to give the hydroxycobalamin. Not to say, okay, I mean, whatever they can get, if needed. But if I'm prescribing, I go with the hydroxycobalamin, 5 milligrams every day if they want, or every week, just to really drive it in. So to me, the form is less important than getting it to the person. But there's so many different pieces. There are some people who need more than the 500, but that's a small percent. The vitamin powder kind of makes it easy. But B12 shots we've known for a long time. The old time docs gave B12, and there was a reason it worked, even in people with normal B12 levels. They weren't stupid.
Right, they had good experience. Yeah, I do find that with the B complexes that sometimes people can't tolerate those. And I think that sometimes it's because they're grown on yeast. And for people who have yeast and fungus, mold, that sometimes they can't tolerate it. Have you seen that? Do you,
One person.
okay.
So again, here's the thing though, when you're doing the whole process, if you're just doing one piece of the process, you start pushing reactions that the body's not able to handle. It's kind of like trying to pick up a boat from one end. The other end goes under. Where if you're doing the whole SHINE protocol, which we'll talk about today, optimizing sleep, hormones and hypotension, the POTS, infections, nutrition, and then a little bit of exercise that's able to prevent deconditioning, not too much. Then you're lifting the whole ship at once. I don't get these reactions If I would just treat one little piece here and one little piece there, yeah, I'm stressing one link gets better, and now you're breaking all the other links. And that's why I like the vitamin powder because it it's well tolerated by most people because it addresses all of these. It has the 5-MTHF. It does have the methylfolate. I'm sorry, the methyl B12, but it has B vitamins through rest. So, and it's a powder, so you can adjust the dose and start slow and work up. You're seeing with 5-MTHF, some people will even give 25 micrograms and they're detoxing. But the powder, I don't see that problem because it has the NAC as well as the other nutrients needed for detoxification. I like raising the whole ship at once. Then the body's better able to sustain and take in the recovery.
Excellent. So, for people who are listening to this right now, they may say, I'm tired a lot, but I don't know if I have chronic fatigue, and I don't know if I have chronic fatigue syndrome or long COVID. So, how do you differentiate those?
Well, you're going to see people trip a circuit breaker called the hypothalamus. These processes represent an energy crisis, usually starting in the mitochondria or eventually getting to the mitochondria, whether from the toxic metals, from the mold toxicity. Eventually, it trips a circuit breaker, an almond-sized area in the brain called the hypothalamus. That controls sleep. So people have trouble falling asleep, even if they're making time for sleep. Um, so basically, the question again, because I went off base.
Sure.
Be
So, the difference
specific.
between
Uh,
feeling tired all
how
the
you
time versus
distinguish?
chronic fatigue versus chronic fatigue syndrome.
So if you have insomnia along with fatigue, that paradox, most people, if they're exhausted, they go to bed and sleep all weekend. But with CFS and fibromyalgia, you can't fall asleep, stay asleep, or have restorative sleep. That combination, that paradox of can't sleep despite exhaustion, tells you you've tripped the hypothalamic circuit breaker and you are having the CFS fibromyalgia process. If you have brain fog, that's suggested also. If you hurt all over, if you have widespread pain in more than 4 or 5 parts of your body, you have the fibromyalgia. For most people, CFS, fibro, long COVID, all the same thing.
Mhm. So it is this, so you have to have the sleep component and then um the body pain and then the brain fog in addition to the exhaustion.
Thyroid achy, brain fog, can't sleep.
Mhm.
That tells you you've got this process as opposed to day-to-day fatigue. Day-to-day fatigue will go away with rest. This doesn't.
So for people who don't have sleep issues, they're sleeping 7 to 9 hours of 7 to 9 hours a night, but they're still fatigued during the day, then is that chronic fatigue?
If they wake up rested, and then they get tired easily, I'm going to look for other causes of low energy. If they have the brain fog or widespread pain with it, it's pretty much the same process. It may not fit my technical definitions, but the SHINE protocol still helps them. So the taxonomy, what pigeonhole we put them in, is
Right.
less important to me than the pattern of what I see going on in that case. That's dragging down their energy.
Yeah, I think that's really important. A lot of people really get hooked on whether or not they have a particular diagnosis. I had one person comment on my Facebook page because I was talking about chronic fatigue, and they said chronic fatigue is very different than chronic fatigue syndrome. And I disagree. I think that the causes are the same for the most part, but it's just the to different degrees. What do you think?
I don't like the term chronic fatigue syndrome. It's the most useless piece of crap diagnosis because the CDC killed it by making a diagnostic criteria that was totally horrible. So a lot of people have CFS. They need help with it. The current diagnostic criteria are awful. And so I prefer to use chronic fatigue myself and fibromyalgia and long COVID. And then I break the chronic fatigue into, is there hypothalamic dysfunction? Is there the mold toxicities? Is it thyroid? Is it adrenal? What are the underlying processes that are going on? I don't like CFS just because the diagnostic criteria that define them are some of the worst diagnostic criteria I've seen in my 50 years in medicine.
Yeah. But it seems like people self-identify. They feel like they have
Hmm.
They look it up and they're like, oh, maybe I have this, maybe I don't.
Mm.
Yeah,
And it's understandable, and that's okay. I'm not saying there's no chronic fatigue syndrome. There is. I just don't like that language. It's like calling diabetes chronic fatty fat person syndrome or something. It's just, it becomes demeaning to people. I prefer different languaging.
right.
But what's most important is how do you tell what's going on in your case? And that's because, again, it's an energy crisis. Anything can suppress the mitochondria or the hypothalamus. You can see toxic metals suppressing the energy furnaces in the body, poor nutrition, not enough sleep. You can see hormonal deficiencies. You can see chronic stress draining your energy. Anything that drains the energy triggers a cascade. This circuit breaker, the hypothalamus I mentioned, uses more energy for its size than anywhere in the body. So
Mm,
when energy levels drop, it goes offline first. Meanwhile, if you have mold toxins, which tend to be from the sinuses, the hypothalamus is nearby. You can see direct suppression. Um, so all these different things, there's all kind of ways to trigger an energy crisis. You don't have to go after all of them, but if you go after a couple, it's as if you have a pack of little dogs that are attacking you, and no one of the dogs, just shoo it off if it's one or two, but if there's six or seven of them, they drag you down.
mhm,
You don't have to drag all seven off. You knock out, three or four of them, and your body's able to take care of the rest and chase them off.
mhm.
So, see which things appeal to you most. And, the SHINE protocol includes what the underlying causes are that I start with. Let me make an offer for those listening. Um, I know we're covering a lot of information, and with the brain fog, it gets kind of like, what? um, so take a piece of paper, pen. Here's my email address. My personal email is fatigue, FATIGUE, at gmail.com. You can email me and ask for the free chronic fatigue syndrome or fatigue or fibromyalgia or long COVID information sheets. I will give you a summary of here's the key places to begin. Here are places to get more information. Shameless plug from Fatigue's fantastic, great book. If you have long COVID, you can heal from long COVID. But the information sheets will really get you a good start. It'll also have home tests for how to diagnose whether you have POTS, and then how to make the POTS go away. It's not hard to diagnose it at home. You don't have to buy test kits or anything. It's free. And um, these things are easy, but you want to step by step. And these information sheets will lay them out for you.
Nice. So let's talk about POTS. So what causes POTS and how do we fix it?
Well, we talk about the hypothalamic suppression that controls sleep, hormones, autonomic function. Those are the key things. When we stand up, we're a big bag of water. Gravity sends all the blood down to our legs. To be an upright species, we had to develop the autonomic nervous system, which sends the blood from our legs back up to our brain and our organs. That is when that autonomic system is working poorly. That happens for a number of factors in this disease, including the direct hypothalamic suppression, small fiber neuropathy, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. But it's there and easy to diagnose and treat. You don't need a $2,000 torture tilt table test to do it. Um, so there are simple things: compression stockings, adrenal support, increasing salt water intake. There are over a dozen natural approaches and medication approaches, so you can go ahead and adjust it to what takes care of it. Like say, these things are not hard to treat. It's just that most doctors have never heard of them.
Yeah. It's funny. I remember looking for stuff on long COVID a number of years ago when it first started. And I found a doctor who said miracle cure for long COVID. And he found out that if you use saline, which is basically water and salt, right, that it really helped a lot of people.
Yeah,
Uh,
it does. David's working on that. In fact, the 12-minute tilt test that we use in the POTS information sheet was derived from his work. So again, what you have is this cascade with all these different things. So you're going to see almost monthly. We found the cause. No, it's one wisp of smoke off a bigger fire. So yes, the IV saline does help. for a day or two. You know,
Right. Yeah. And so let's go to long COVID. So, how does someone, let's start with the beginning, like somebody starts to feel worse. It's been since 2020. Like, how do you know if they have long COVID?
if they have persistent, well, the definition for long COVID is also awful. It's basically any symptom that persists more than 2 months after COVID. That's like lumping everything together in car crash disease. If you had a car crash, any symptom, bloody nose, fractured hip, skull fracture, heart destruction, it's all car crash disease. And how are you going to set up a study if you can't define a treatment group, which is what the current government definitions? It's putting it back 30 years. So technically, if you have any symptom that persists since you had COVID, you have long COVID. Whoop-de-doo. Okay, now how do you break it down? It's nice to know, do you have a bloody nose from the auto accident or hip fracture? We know how to treat all of these different things that are downstream. But when you go in, you say, well, we know how to treat a bloody nose. The experts go, there's no research on treating bloody noses in long COVID. Yeah, but we know how to treat it. There's no studies in long COVID, you quack. Okay, so now that will change as soon as it's an expensive, profitable new treatment, in my humble opinion. Okay. I've been in this field for 50 years. All good people, no bad people. The system is broken.
Yeah.
So how do you start? Break first, what category are you in? Tired, achy, brain fog, can't sleep, you have two or three of those. You've got the post-viral CFS fibromyalgia pattern. So, and we know how to treat that with the SHINE protocol. Again, the information sheets I'll send out will kind of get you started and lay it out for you. Um, yeah, POTS is a big piece of that. We see that very, very frequently in long COVID. You have a loss of sense of smell and taste. Well, when you want to use PEA, there's a really good form of PEA called healthy inflammatory response. And you want to take 600 to 1200 milligrams a day plus luteolin 70 milligrams a day. And after several months, the studies show that dramatically helps that. Do you have heart damage? Well, ribose, coenzyme Q10, I like to highly absorb. There's one bacteria naturally that has can absorb that the CoQ10 is really dramatically well absorbed. B vitamins, magnesium, all these things improve cardiac function quite dramatically, and they're easy. Do you have shortness of breath? When you email me at fatiguedoc@gmail.com, ask for the shortness of breath information sheet, whether you have lung damage or not. The sheet will say, here's how you tell if it's heart or lung, or whether it's coming from the vagal nerve causing your muscles, the diaphragm not to go up and down properly. It'll walk you through it and then, okay, here's how you take care of it. But these things are not hard. It's just a matter of knowledge.
Mhm. Thank you for that. And are these sheets also in your book?
Yes, if between From Fatigue to Fantastic, which is more like the textbook, and the You Can Heal from Long COVID, which is fine for CFS and fibro, and is more like the short, brain fog version. Um, Much, if not most of this information will already be in the books. The PEA is new enough to me, my learning about it, that's not in the books. And for anybody with chronic sensitivities or chronic pain, the PEA research is stunning. But I like also there's a new high absorption one called healthy inflammatory response. And for that, if you have chronic pain or sensitivities, let me know. If you have sensitivities, I'll send you the MCAS information sheet, mast cell activation syndrome, and I'll send you the PEA information sheets.
Thank you. So let's talk about, well, actually, in terms of the PEA, what's the mechanism of action for that?
Funny, they're palmitoyl not to be confused with those round green things who like to shoot each other's kids at dinner. It works through multiple systems. It is a cannabinoid in its activity. But it's kind of, I call it a superhero molecule. When there's chronic pain or chronic stress, the hypothalamus lands up putting out PEA to kind of battle it and take care of it. When it's losing that war and the PEA isn't enough to keep up, you'll see chronic pain, it's called microglial activation, but you'll also see histamine release, which is one reason why you see the mast cell activation syndrome. That understanding was kind of a missing link in understanding how this all fits together. So the PEA has multiple mechanisms of action, but especially for chronic sensitivities and chronic pain, it's quite remarkable.
Excellent. So let's go to the SHINE protocol. You've referred to it a couple times. Take us through it.
Okay, and again, I tend to use a mix of natural and prescription therapies. It can be done either way. So I invite the viewers to honor their preference. Some of you appreciate the toxicity of medicines and don't want to go there. Others want to know, okay, which ones are safer, which are not. Others have no money and the medicines are covered and natural things aren't, which is a valid reason to use the medications too. So, and by the way, for those of you who are like flat broke from this disease, I was homeless when I had it, knocked out of med school and left me homeless because I couldn't work. Ask for the how to get well with no money information sheet. So all of these things happen to supply. So with the SHINE protocol, S is for sleep. Sleep center's not working. You need to be able to help your body with sleep. I start with a sustained release 10 milligram melatonin. There's one called EP120. That's what I use myself. I start with a mix of 6 herbs called the Revitalizing Sleep Formula. It's a mix of passion flower, lavender balm, theanine, 5-HTP, hops, a bunch of stuff. It's just really good for sleep. Beyond that, there are essential oils. Put a drop of lavender oil right under your nose, on your upper lip, the smell of lavender. Put dried lavender flowers in a vase by your bedside. The smell of lavender helps you sleep. There's a mix of essential oils called terrific C's, over the counter, things like Benadryl. And if it doesn't bother the brain fog, there's a whole host of those kind of things. Other medications, but tiny dosing, trazodone, gabapentin, things like that. In the books, I talk about over 30 different things for sleep. And the multivitamin, taking magnesium at bedtime helps sleep. If you're in one of those places where the cold weather is hitting, an Epsom salt bath, 1 to 2 cups of Epsom salts, that's magnesium salts, in a tub of hot water, and soak, and give yourself a half hour to cool down after before you go to bed so you don't sweat. That relaxes all your muscles, help you go to sleep, increase pain at the same time. So there's plenty you can do. And in, like I say, it's been almost 50 years now since I had it myself, and I treated countless thousands of people. I can count on my fingers how many people, well, now I reached my toes after I got to about 3,000 people I treated. But the number of people I've not been able to get good solid sleep with this disease, because many of you are saying, there's no way I can get sleep. You can't. You just need to know how.
Beautiful. So that's the S.
Mm-hmm.
And then take us to the H.
Okay, so H would be 2 things. One would be hormones. Remember, this hypothalamic center controls sleep, hormones, and autonomic function. So your hormones across the board are going to be deficient despite normal testing. I know people say, but what do you mean if the test is normal, you're fine? Here's a secret your doctor doesn't know, which is where the normal range comes from. In medical school, we're given the impression that a group of elderly, wise doctors with big long beards down to their belly button, would got together and go, well, if the test falls between the thing, the person's fine, don't worry about it. No such group. Okay, what they do is the lab takes 100 people, they do the test, and they apply something called 2 standard deviations. Put into English, the 95 in the middle are defined as normal. So abnormal means you're in the highest or lowest, about 2% of the population. Let's make this a little easier to understand in English. If I was creating a medical normal range for shoe sizes, the way it's normally derived, a normal range for shoe sizes would be size 6 to 13. I have a size 12 foot. If I went into the shoe doctor wearing a size 8 shoe, the doctor would say, that's in the normal range. There's no problem, Jacob. It's exactly what's happening with hormones. There's as much variation with hormonal needs as there's shoe sizes. So how do you tell if you need the hormones? Because the research shows, even though thyroid lab testing is normal in most people, it's in the lowest 5%. So it's right on that edge, but it's normal, dang it, not a problem. So the tired, achy, weight gain, cold intolerant, recurrent miscarriages, constipation, although from the other problems in fiber, you can see the diarrhea too. If you have these symptoms, you deserve a trial of thyroid hormone, preferably the bioidentical by prescription, and not adjusted to the TSH test. I was lecturing at the annual conference in Italy. They go to a different country every year and have a 5 miles conference. And one of the people presenting with me was Professor Gunther Neek, and he was a world's leading researcher on thyroid function of fibromyalgia. And I asked him, is TSH reliable in this disease? And he said, absolutely not. You know, it drops 50% in this disease. Still normal. You go from a size 12 shoe to a size 6, but you're normal. No, you're not. So treat the thyroid. Adrenal. Adrenal is a stress handler. The tests won't tell you. And you can use salivary testing and the rest. I'd rather just ask a simple question. Do you get irritable when hungry? If you're not sure, ask your significant other. Okay? And if they're going like this right now, or you know that you do, a simple supplement called Adrenaplex. Number one, get rid of excess stress, like turning off the media, turning off things that are pushing fear and divisiveness. There's this Tai Chi move. Oh, center. And when you're watching something makes you grind your teeth, reach to the side, grab the remote control and click off. You'll feel better, I guarantee it. And it's like Mark Twain said. He said, well, if you read the news, if you don't read the news, you're uninformed. But if you do read the news, you're misinformed. It hasn't gotten any better. You won't be missing much. Turn it off. Keep your attention on things that leave you feeling better. Your adrenals, thank you. But again, the supplement Adrenaplex, one or two each morning can smooth out your energy and the moods. They address what's called being hangry, and that thing helps the energy, helps the recurrent infections. We find get everything that comes around, takes forever to go away. That's slow adrenal. In most cases, helps low blood pressure issues, and increase salt, cut down sugar.
Nice. So
And
that
then for bioidentical hormones, if you're worse around your menses, if the fibro being worse, not just PMS, then that suggests that low estrogen and progesterone are contributing. And there's many ways to address that. In men, 70% of people with this disease are in the low 30th percentile for testosterone. And there's a not natural, there's a medication called clomiphene, which stimulates your body's own testosterone production. And there's all kinds of ways. In my book, we'll talk about how to address all of those hormone issues.
Do you have any favorite natural remedies for increasing testosterone?
I like treating the underlying whole process with shine allows the hypothalamus to wake up and make her own testosterone.
Yeah.
And that the horny goat weeds, you can use, there's a study I did on HRG80 red ginseng, which is quite remarkable. Get the chewable tablets. It does actually stimulate testosterone production, but it's going to stimulate energy in other ways. I mean, that's what I take if I have a really busy day. I just take half a chewable tablet of the HRG80 red ginseng and my energy's like that. It does raise testosterone, but I prefer to treat the underlying problems with it. What's yours? What's your favorite?
The same. I mean, I see that most men who have low testosterone is really coming from having mold or some of these other toxins. So I definitely agree. I'm experimenting right now a little bit with a product called Natural Boost by Nutrimetics.
Hmm.
And so that's a form of maca.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've not seen that much. Chris Gillum, who's a wonderful friend of mine, and he had the hot plants for him and for her, and uh, he's brilliant. But I'm not impressed that the male natural options raise testosterone really to a level that's going to be that significant.
Mhm.
So whether it's horny goat's weed, maca, or whichever of these. So I'm more inclined just to go with the bioidentical hormone. If the person is above wanting to have children age or above in their 60s, under 50s, I'm going to go with clomiphene, just half tablet at bedtime. And in between, I tailor it to the person.
Nice. So that's H for hormone, and H is also for hypotension. And you talked a little bit about POTS. Is
Hmm.
there anything else that you want to say about hypotension?
Well, just again, if you tend to get lightheaded when you've been standing, and first standing occasionally, or if you find that your brain fog is worse when you've been standing in a line for 20 minutes, 30 minutes when you've been upright, suspect it. But anybody with CFS or fibromyalgia, the tests are easy to do at home. Just email me at fatiguedoc@gmail.com and it'll go through here the two home tests. One is a questionnaire, another is checking your pulse after standing. Tell you exactly how to do it. It's just easy to know. And then it'll say, okay, here's what you do for positive. It just it just lays it all out. It keeps because we can do a whole show on that.
Yeah. Okay, great. So that's SH, and so then I is infections.
Infections. The immune system is down on this disease. And what happens, many of the infections, whether it's Lyme or Epstein-Barr or COVID, um, they seem to, it's kind of like if you were trying to break out of prison or evade the guards. What you would do is, if you're doing a jailbreak, you would free up 100 other prisoners. So suddenly the guards are overwhelmed, chasing everybody down, and you can sneak past the immune system. Seems like that goes on a good bit for many of these infections as part of their strategy that they've developed. Um, so you'll see Epstein-Barr reactivation, Lyme disease, and co-infections, Candida. These are really common. The problem for these different co-infections and reactivations, we don't have tests that I consider reliable for them, and I will treat clinically. So there's a bunch of tests for Candida, but I wouldn't give a nickel for any of them. Um, and but if you have chronic nasal congestion, sinusitis, or irritable bowel syndrome, gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, um, then I'm going to treat for Candida. I like medications, but there's also Grepoprolis, berberine, and a good probiotic. You can email me and ask for the Candida or mold information sheet if you want, and I can give you details with that. So treating the Candida with those when those symptoms are present, which they usually are, is major. Lyme disease, I prefer to blanket that into the antibiotic sensitive infection category. And the book goes through if you have these and these and these symptoms. But if you ever had an antibiotic and your CFS went away for a week or two after the antibiotic, or duh, you go to the doctor and say, I was bedridden, I was out, now I'm back in bed. Can I have the antibiotic? Go, oh, no. It's kind of maddening. I know.
Right.
I've been there. I understand we are. Um, the antivirals, Valtrex and Fampir. Certainly, there's Virapro for natural immune stimulants. There's all kinds of ways to. The diagnosis of infections to me is based on clinical symptoms, and the book from Fatigue Fantastic goes through for each type. Here's suspected. Has a list of the symptoms. If you had your infection began after a virus, you have chronic flu-like things. The blood tests aren't going to tell you if you have Epstein-Barr reactivation. They're positive in everybody, 95% of healthy people. But the antiviral protocols can be very helpful. And Evan, you could probably talk about the Lyme protocols even better than I can. It sounds like you've studied Neil's work a bit too. And so um, he's excellent. So if these are looking for the infections, I don't use tests for it. Um, and then there's mold toxins. I'm not convinced yet that the urine toxic, but Neil is thinking that they are more reliable. Um, and I trust him. He's the world's expert in this, Neil Nathan. And the book Toxic Over Your Shoulders, excellent book. But if you have severe anxiety and sensitive to everything, that's a really good indication to suspect mold toxicity. And then the toxic book, my book will do it too. Or you can email me and ask for the sensitive to everything chapter, and I'll send you about how look for and treat mold toxicity. So this is, again, all of these can be whole shows on their own. Um, but yeah, that falls under the eye.
Nice. Yeah, I don't do testing anymore for the infections or for mold. I mean, I do have people test for mold in their environment to make sure they're not
Mhm.
living in it. But I
Mhm.
assume, over the last decade and testing a lot of people, I find that initially, oftentimes the tests are not indicating mycotoxins, but in 6 months, if we were to repeat the test, then all of a
Mhm.
sudden it's a waterfall of mycotoxins. So I just treat everybody for mold at this point because I see it in everybody that I work with.
Yeah. And it's reasonable. My concern is that it's a bit of a Pandora's box that once you open, there is no agreed upon testing for environmental molds. And some companies will not see mold if you're living in a black mold house covered. They say, we don't see anything. And others, if you see one little mycelium, which is going to be everywhere, they go and they give you a $50,000 to $200,000 remediation bill for your home. So what I like to do, because you'll see that, well, gee, okay, you have a moldy environment. How's everybody else in the house? Well, everybody else is fine. Hmm. So my approach is to get your body healthy with the shine protocol, so it's not sensitive to the mold, instead of making people move out of their home and live in the woods.
Mm.
And then if there's not getting better enough with shine, then I'm going to go after mold, just because, like say, if they live in a rented place, I'm not so concerned. But if they have their own home, it's a Pandora's box. I'm a little slow to open.
Right.
But Neil is much faster to open it. And he's seeing, but I think what happens, as I mentioned earlier when we were talking, is we tend to draw to us the people who have what we need.
Right.
So I know Neil draws a very sensitive to everything, nothing helps, can't take anything population, and those are mold.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said. So that's I, and so then N, nutrient deficiencies, right?
Yep. As we talked about before, there's countless nutrients. Use common sense with your diet. It doesn't have to be a perfect diet, but cut down the sugar, increase protein, increase salt. Use salt restricted this disease. You'll crash and burn. Make it a good quality salt, like sea salt when you can. Um, Take the good multivitamin. Again, the energy revitalization drink mix. If you start with just two things for today, the energy revitalization drink mix, and the HRG 80 red ginseng uh, chewable tablets. Chewables are much less expensive. They're not expensive either way, but they're much better absorbed. So I would go with that. Then I'd add smart energy system. A couple simple things, but increase your salt, cut down the sugar, increase protein, and bottom line, see what feels best to you. As I said before, with the exception of sugar, sugar is an addiction. It's like shooting up heroin. You'll feel really good for a couple hours, and your life crashes. Um, so these are the basics for nutrition. And E for exercise, again, these studies where they do massive exercise and get insane, really poorly done. But if you do no exercise, because you get wiped out for 3 days if you do it, you're going to decondition. So you want just enough walking or other exercise. And for those of you who have trouble exercising, you know, because you have the POTS, email me and ask for the exercise information sheet. I'll tell you how to do it with POTS, not crash. So, so this is Shine. Should we talk about pain management?
Yes, I wanted to just
Yeah.
comment on the exercise. I call it getting your Goldilocks dose of movement. Not movement too much that makes you feel worse, right? But not
Mm-hmm.
nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, let's go to pain. What's the latest,
Okay.
greatest, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, there's eight main different kinds, seven to nine, depending on how you want to categorize, main kinds of pain. And all but one of them, which is the reflex sympathetic dystrophy or CRPS, is present in fibromyalgia. So, number one, if you do have RSD, which they now call CRPS, email me for the CRPS information sheet. Okay, I'll take care of that. It is very, very treatable. It's awesome. Um, for the fibromyalgia pain, number one, when you do the SHINE protocol, our study showed that the majority of people, the pain went down so much, they no longer qualified as having diagnosis fibromyalgia. Pain is like the oil light on your dashboard. It's saying we need something. Medically, we smash the oil light or put a Band-Aid over it. Doesn't work very well. But if you just put oil in the car, the oil light goes on. If you give your body what it needs, the pain goes away. For the muscle pain, shine is what your body needs. It increases energy production in the muscles. And when muscles don't have energy, like a spring, they get stuck in a shortened position. But as you pull energy into the spring, it relaxes. As you put energy biochemically, or any other way, if you put an acupuncture needle, turn it, make an electrical current, you can put pressure and you're creating an energy that's going in. And anything that puts energy into the muscles, hot bath, heating pad, helps the muscles relax. And the core pain starts for most people with the tight muscles. Then that triggers brain pain or central sensitization, call it small fiber neuropathy, call it, wind up. There's all these different things. But it's central nervous system pain, microglial activation. The PEA I mentioned, there's over 30 studies looking for chronic pain. And especially if you have sensitivities, email me and ask for the PEA information sheets. It'll give the dosing, it'll give you some of the study references. It's amazing. It's research that I just kind of pulled the thread and was looking at. And my eyes got really big as I kept looking at study after study after study. Um, Nerve pain. If you have nerve pain, um, lipoic acid, 300 milligrams twice a day, make sure you're good multivitamin, like the vitamin powder, because low B12, even with normal tests, will cause nerve pain. You don't want too much B6. I max it at 45 milligrams a day because otherwise you can worsen nerve pain. So this is all, you feed the nerves what they need. But again, email me if you have nerve pain and ask for the neuropathy chapter for my book, Pain Free 123. I'll send that to you. um, Say you've got allodynia, where light touch hurts. That's an NMDA receptor issue, especially when that pain is severe or any chronic pain is severe. There's ketamine. Ketamine is an anesthetic. It's also a hallucinogen. It's sold on the black market, but it also is very, very useful for chronic pain. I'm going to start with the PEA first, but here's the thing to know about the ketamine. Most places you're going to go in, they're going to charge you $1,000 a dose, and you're going to have to go back every 3 weeks and get it, and your insurance won't pay for it. Compounding pharmacies will make a nasal spray ketamine. That's about $1 to $3 a dose, not $1,000 a dose. The regular nasal spray from the pharmacy is about $850 a dose. So just know that the compounding pharmacies, if you have a doctor who's willing to work with you. But again, the first visit should be monitored because it's a hallucinogen. Um, and then you have all the other kinds of pain too. You have the organ pain, mentioned sinusitis, irritable bowel syndrome, candida, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, things like that. But if I had to pick one thing for just simple natural pain relief, there's a supplement called Curamin, Curamin. It's a mix of a highly absorbed curcumin and boswellia, along with DLPA and nattokinase. It has been a pain relief miracle for people. Give it 6 weeks to see the full effect. And with chronic pain, go with the PEA, healthy inflammation response. I would use that specific brand. And email me for the information sheets because in there I'll give what different studies showed for dosing and the rest. But it's 600 milligrams a day as minimum. Give it 3 months. The pain expert who may have the most experience in the world using it gives 1,200 milligrams a day for a month, and then takes it up to 2,400 milligrams a day for 2 months. And it doesn't matter what the cause of the chronic pain is. It has been they just the study I saw on compression pain, which is like low back pain, sciatica, 70% average drop in pain with a PEA. These are staggering. And if your sensitivities go away with it, hey, so that's a quick hand pain.
Excellent. Well, we got just a couple minutes left. So where can people find you, learn more about you, contact you? Obviously, your email address, but any place else you want to share?
Yeah. So I don't send me whole case histories because I'll send them, I won't get down. But if you have a question or two that you can fit in a couple lines, although if I say sentences, there's 400 line sentences, but if it's a short question, I try to get to those. Email me also if you just want the information sheets. Let me know the key things that are troubling you. My website, the one for the supplements that I recommend, they're available pretty much everywhere. My website is endfatigue.com. So and like Nancy, D like David, FATIGUE.com. Thank you for your patronage. But again, because otherwise people don't know if I'm just selling them stuff, the stuff I talk about is available everywhere and hundreds of places. And I don't make anything off the other places. So it's just, I know when I'm trying to separate truth from BS, that's a helpful tool for me to know that. So if you're thinking that, oh, he's just selling me stuff, go get it on Amazon. I won't make a penny, and I will be, unless I get the shine ribos that I will make, but on all the other stuff. And if that will leave you feeling more comfortable and safe, please do that. I'm really good with that. Um, and then I have it, it's funny, I hold U.S. patent for a computerized doctor, um, because people couldn't get the doctor, to find somebody like Evan. You guys have no idea how lucky you are. And, there's an online program. It was kind of an early AI that I designed, where you can go in, answer a series of questions, put in your pertinent lab tests if you have them. It will analyze and say, here are the cause of your energy drains, why you're having the energy crisis. You can find it at energyanalysisprogram.com. It's free. We used to charge $400 for it, and people said, I'm on Medicaid, I have no money, I can't. And my wife and I decided we'd just make it free for everybody. And we simplified it down because it was really kind of complex, because you got a really detailed report on your specific case, and how to optimize your energy. Um, but that's another tool that we put out there. Think the game, again, in 1975, I was homeless after a nasty viral infection, knocked me out of med school. And like I said, I couldn't work, so I was homeless, sleeping in parks. It's as if the universe put a holistic homeless medical school sign on my park bench. All these different, I didn't know there were naturopaths and herbalists and chakra workers, and I've been ready. That's just med student, just, Jewish kid who wanted to be a healer, and being an MD was the only path I knew about. All these people came by that I bumped into when I was homeless, and they taught me what I needed to know to recover. And I spent the next 50 years, and I'm a science geek. That's a whole other story too. I go through thousands of studies. Um, but once you got better and you realize the medical profession doesn't care, the good people that they're taught the religion of, if the pharmaceutical industry did not teach me through the representatives, the professors, and the rest, it must be pseudoscience quackery
Mhm.
that to protect the patient from. Okay, so people say, well, I've seen no evidence it works. Here's a dozen studies. That's pseudoscience. How do you know? I don't have to waste my time on it. I just know, damn it. They can honestly say, I've seen no studies showing that it works.
Right.
That's the game. The research is very clear that effective treatment is available for these conditions. It's safe, affordable, and accessible and effective. And so my goal is, how do you get this information out? Well, by making things like computerized doctors. It's a game. You write the books, you do the studies. It's how you get the information out when there's no expensive, simple treatment. It's fun.
And so you're retired from seeing patients right now, and so your mission in life is now to bring this message to the world, it sounds like.
Teaching, empowering people to reclaim their health. Mhm.
Well, thank you so much for being on today. This has been really wonderful. Such an honor and a joy for me to connect with you in this way, and I so appreciate you sharing all this wonderful information.
Well, likewise. And it's fun. It's funny when I treat people and they say, I'm going to get better, and tell everybody, I say, no, get better, make believe, forget you ever had this disease, and walk away and get on with your life. Unless it's something that's really your passion and you love to do it, because you will find the trolls out there will try to jump you. Just let it go, get on with your life. Unless, like I say, if you really want to, we're happy to help you show you how. But it's get better, get well, get on with your life, follow your bliss, leave this behind.
Amen. Thank you so much, Dr. Teitelbaum. So if you have chronic fatigue, whether it's from long COVID or chronic fatigue syndrome, go ahead and click the link below to watch my latest masterclass, where I go deep into our 4-step process that has helped thousands of others resolve their symptoms naturally. After you watch that video, if you're interested in seeing if we're a good fit to work together, you can then get on a free call with me. All right, thanks so much. I'll see you over there. I hope you learned something on today's podcast. If you did, please share it with your friends and family and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. It's really helpful for getting this information out to more people who desperately need it. Sharing all the experts I know and love and the powerful tips I have is one of my absolute favorite things to do. Thanks for being part of my community. Just a reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified medical professional. It is provided with the understanding that it does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. Thanks for listening and have an amazing day.